Always live lovely.
You are now listening to Breaking Barriers, a mental health discussion. I'm your host, Chetina Guadalupe. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, consultant, speaker, and singer. Breaking Barriers, a mental health discussion was created to provide examples of conversations with various people on stigmatizing topics, to break barriers so that you can be encouraged to go within your own community and have these same conversations. Each episode is timeless. There's always something that you can receive from it over and over again. We push the bar a little bit with the topics we talk about. That's why it's called Breaking Barriers. We speak about things that people typically aren't creating space for so that we can all receive healing. Share with everyone you know because of this. There's something that everyone can benefit from in each episode. If you like what you hear and would like to support Always Live Lovely, please donate. This helps us to be able to continue to provide free information on multiple platforms. I will leave the link below. We appreciate any support you're able to provide to keep this thing going. If you would like to stay connected with all things Always Live Lovely, you can visit us at www.alwayslivelovely.com. We provide individual mental health, therapy services, consultations, products, music, information on upcoming events, and so much more. Don't miss out. And of course, if you like my vibe and you would like me to speak on your platform or at your next mental health event, connect with me at connect@alwayslivelovely.com. Enjoy the episode and remember, always live lovely.
Always living lovely. Just don't let the times go by. Do something. You don't gotta go outside yourself to prove nothing. You can lean on me if you need a hand. You can lean on me if you need a friend. You know that I got you. You know that we got you. Yeah.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Breaking Barriers, a mental health discussion. I'm your host, Chetina Guadalupe, and today is an extra special. I know I always say episodes are extra special, and I'm super excited about them. But no, literally, as you can tell, it's already going to be different because it's not two people in different places. It's two people in the same place. So we're going to find out what that means in a second. So I'm really excited to be able to share this episode because as you've probably been able to tell by now, it all is about, my pregnancy journey, postpartum journey, everything in between, people that have been a part of that journey coming on, and that's basically how we're ending out the season. By this time, I'm not sure. Maybe people had seen on Instagram the disclaimer I wrote about what it actually feels like to release these episodes and be vulnerable in this way, but also have a story to tell. And know that it's very important for me to utilize my voice to speak to experiences people may not always get the chance to speak to. It may come across a variety of different ways, meaning that in some episodes I may be very excited and I may be in a very grateful place. In some places I may feel upset or I may feel triggered or I may feel angry at something, but it's all the joys and the ebbs and flows of how motherhood and being human is, and me creating the space to know that it's okay to be that way and for us to have the space to be able to talk about things and to not have to paint it to be a picture perfect thing, but something that you're forever processing through because it's something that you've endured and been through. So without further ado, so we in the same place, y'all, because if you ain't already know, you're about to know, you're about to find out. This is my wonderful husband, Rodrael Guadalupe, my honey, my lover, my baby boo, my best friend, the father of my child, my baby daddy, everything in between. And so I'm excited to have him here today, and he will be introducing himself. So tell the people a little bit about you.
My name is Rodrael Guadalupe. Most of y'all, if you know me, probably know me as Rod. And I am a human being. I'm a singer, songwriter, artist, educator, right, based in the East Bay, and I have a lot to give.
Y'all, he really did not hype himself up at all whatsoever. So he is a singer, a songwriter, a restorative justice man, a person that creates change, one of the best human beings that I know. Will give the shirt, the socks, everything off his back to somebody that's in need. Constantly just is a man that's multifaceted, if that's the right word, and multi-talented, is always just coming up with brilliant things to do, and he doesn't just help himself, but he helps everyone that's around him. Just had to hype you up a little bit because he my husband for a reason, duh. So anyways.
And not to mention, importantly, I'm a dad. I'm a father.
Yeah, because that's what this episode is going to be about. That's a great segue. He is a dad. And today, this episode is going to be about becoming a father. So, we're going to try to be as open and transparent as, you feel comfortable with and that we're able to be, because dads don't actually get a lot of space, I feel like, to share their side of the story, to be able to get any of the recognition that they deserve as well during this journey, because it's all very much mother-centered and all the attention goes to the mother. Honestly, not much is really even offered for the dad to be able to even process their experience. And we're really going to be focusing on from conception, pregnancy, all the way up into the first year, because our cute little baby boy is 1 year old. Just in kind of getting things started out, going all the way back to the moment, or even before, if it's anything before, but finding out that you were going to be a father. What was that like for you? Not even when you find out like the gender, because sometimes finding out the gender of your child can be a different thing and have a lot of things running through your mind, whatever the case may be. But just knowing that you were going to be a father, period. What was that like for you?
I was very excited and happy, because I didn't ever really think that I was going to be a father or a dad of my own child, just because I hadn't been dating or hadn't been in relationships. I was just kind of focused on my music and also my career and education, that I just was like, I have a whole bunch of kids that I consider my babies, and my particularly like mentoring a lot of young men. These are like my little brothers. So I was surrounded by like so many young people that I considered taking care of in little small ways, or when I was at school being somewhat of a parent or a parental figure to them. So having my own child wasn't in my deck of cards that I thought were just going to happen in my life. So when I found out that I was going to be a dad, I was very happy. The immediate nerves came because I knew it was the unknown.
Yeah.
The unknown ahead that we had, like all the like the pregnancy, like will everything be okay? That immediately like kicked in. But with her, we had talked about having kids. So when we got engaged and we got married, I was like, it's something that we wanted. So I knew that it wasn't not possible for us to do that.
Yeah.
To try to have a family.
And I do feel like, because, like, sometimes people ask us, oh, was your pregnancy planned or was it not planned? And I do say that we were open to it. It wasn't something that we were necessarily stopping. We were open to love, creating more love. And I definitely feel like even if you're a person that, like, plans your pregnancy or love is creating love or whatever the case may be, I still feel like there's still a huge shock when you're like, oh, snap. But no, like, there really is a baby. Like, I'm really, really, really about to become a parent. And do you feel like that was like for you, like, even though we were like open to it, it's still like when it actually happened, and as time progressed, because the doctors don't be sending you straight in like the day of to take a blood test or anything to see if you're pregnant, they make you wait. But when you really even more figured out, like, oh my gosh, there's really a baby in there, or you saw the baby in there, like, how did your emotions change? Did anything change for you?
I think during the pregnancy, I was concerned about you and like your physical well-being, because you're taking care of yourself and a baby. And I knew that you had to be taken care of and you had to be healthy in order for the baby to be healthy. But there was a lot of learning along the way, as a man, but also as a man in partnership with a woman who was pregnant with their first child. We had to learn a lot of things together. I was extremely excited, but I was almost too excited. Like, I was like, told a lot of people. I wanted to tell people. I wanted to tell everybody.
It's all
I really wanted to tell everybody, but I realized I was like anxious for her because of the first trimester and the statistics of a lot of women having miscarriages their first trimester, and I didn't really understand that. So I think I was nervous every step of the way, really, until the baby was here. And then it was like, well, I mean, we're going to talk about what happened once the baby's here, but and the stressors. But I think I was nervous the whole time.
Yeah.
But she was very on top of her appointments and her progress. So up until going into delivery, it was like we kind of knew what we were gonna anticipate.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing is, so I always mess with my husband and say he has like the memory of an elephant, because I swear he remembers details from 1962, and he wasn't even born in 1962. But I feel like, you know, my memory sometime, and I don't know if it's just from being overwhelmed sometime, but sometimes I don't remember the intricate details. And side note, I do kind of wish I would have kept like some type of more video journals or more writing journals of the whole experience, because I feel like I've forgotten some of it, even though I was trying my best to be present. We also were preparing for our wedding and everything else. So it was bananas, but all well worth it. But it's coming back to me now, just like the whole idea of the anxiety of that first trimester, because, you know, you never know when's the right time to tell people. And then so I know, like, I probably told a few selected, and we had a plan of a few selected. And then I feel like every time we were talking, he would be like, oh, I told so-and-so, or oh, I did this. And I just remember feeling so frustrated, because I think it's like that fear that is held of like, I don't want to have to untell people, because that's like heartbreaking, and you never know what could happen. And so I would get so upset at him, because I'm like, wait, and he'd be like, no, like, you know, it's fine to tell. And I would feel bad afterward, because I didn't want to take his joy, because it's his first time being a father too. But sometime, unfortunately, as you know, we may know, anxiety can just override things and really try to rob you of an experience and being okay, and however it turns out to be. So I definitely do remember being frustrated with you about that. You know, if we ever do have another kid, I'm hoping that, like, you know, it wouldn't be so like, oh, because we've already been through it, but that those first time jitters are for real, because you just don't know what to expect, and you just want to be really careful before telling the whole world.
Absolutely. I think it's like a balance. I mean, on the flip side of that, there's beauty in like being happy about having a kid. You know, like, you know, folks should be able to tell as many people as possible, because that's genuine, pure happiness and joy, you know, and like you said, it's real. Like, there's pain and unhappiness and sorrow and like, you know, inner hurt. If you do lose you go from being extremely happy to extremely sad. So there's space for all of it. But I think at the time I was just like looking for community. Yeah. Looking for a village, looking for who I can feel safe talking to, because I didn't want to. I had her. I didn't want to feel like I was alone in my journey. And so I like told my boys, like some of my homies, they're like the first people I told, and then like my brother. And so it was like I was thinking about like who were people that I felt like I could just be real and honest with, and not like not a sense of judgment or like,
right,
you know.
But sometimes it would just come up for him with fathers, because he was just connecting with like, I'm about to be a father, they're a father, we're having a conversation, and then he would just say it. And I think those are probably the times where I would get most frustrated, because I'm like, these people ain't need to know. Like, you don't have to tell these people. But I get it, like hearing you just say looking for community, and it feels like an ever journey that we're on of like trying to stay connected to community in some sense. So,
and like my boys, a lot of my homies, like, they don't have kids yet. So actually, most of my best friends that are males, they don't have, I don't think any of them have kids.
No.
And then other than my brother,
not really.
So yeah, my close boys, none of them are dads yet. And so I think that, like, I realized, like, you know, I could talk to them, but then there was that level of, I need to talk to more people, which is when I branched out to even more people. Well, I branched out to men who I knew were fathers that were like, hey, can you give me some advice, or this is what I'm feeling right now? Because I was seeking a sense of, like, not feeling alone outside of my wife.
Yeah, and it's actually sticking out to me just, like, how easily, even myself, like, in falling into just that narrative of, like, everything is about the mom or the person that's carrying the baby, but everything's not just about the person that's carrying the baby. Yes, a whole lot of it is, but it's already, the whole experience is already going to be shaped that way, that the other partner or the father is forgotten about. And then, so, you know, it's important for the fathers to be able to share their joy how they want to share their joy. Come into agreements, but not letting anxiety or fear or anything take away from the joy in the present. Because if, you know, when things work out, then it's like, dang, you could have spent all that time rejoicing rather than being, like, terrified, or, you know, rather than being afraid of the unknown or what could happen or might happen. And it doesn't happen some of the time. Hopefully majority of the time for people. And then, so I feel like it is very important just from that beginning. I could understand to not want to feel isolated. And want to feel like you got people rooting for you too, and like being in your corner. Because there's a lot of things that's going through your mind just as well as through the mother's mind. Okay. And even just in thinking about, like, getting support and being that support person, like, you know, or just watching me go through the whole experience prenatally, because it was a lot. Like, there's so much to it. Like, there's so many appointments, things you're trying to read, people you're trying to, like, link up with, things you gotta buy, things you gotta organize, things you gotta do, just, like, caring for yourself, like, everything in between. Do you feel like you have some highlights that stand out to you, just as far as, like, what you remember your experience to be of being the support person? Not labor and delivery, because we're gonna get to that, but, like, just all the way up into labor and delivery. And, you know, and my job, like, our baby's 1, so we weren't at the top of COVID where nobody could come to anything, only just the moms. We were kind of like in the middle of it. I still think COVID is forever gone, but we're in the middle of it to where, you know, he could come to the first appointment or like the major one. So like the first one, anytime you saw the baby, he could come. All the in between, he couldn't be there. So just kind of like keeping that in mind.
I think that there's not a particular moment, but I think that we've been talking about intimacy and closeness, and I think that, like, bigger picture, what I remember are the nights where we were, like, laying in bed and snuggled up, and, like, me holding, like, feeling her stomach, or talking to the baby, or, like, reading to the baby and singing, and, like, just different moments where she's like, he kicked and he did this. But I also think we were very close, probably closer, interestingly, closer in intimacy and emotional intimacy before the baby was here, even during the pregnancy, than when the baby got here. Like, yeah, so because, like, we've been talking, and one thing that we realized is our baby's a year and 2 months, and, like, we have centered our child more than our, like, relationship. And I think that happens so much with parents, especially young parents, and first time parents, and it's like a balance. But when I think about it, I'm like, that was the year or 9 months before having a child. It was still about our intimacy and like the like us like being close to each other and experiencing it together. So I don't think there's any particular moments. I just feel like the intimacy, like going to sleep, like feeling each other's touch, like holding her stomach or trying to feel the baby, and support, like trying to help support you along the way, and get through it. Yeah. I think that's what I think about. Also, we were planning our our wedding during COVID, and vaccinations had just been approved, and there was so many stressors. I think we were just trying to not be stressed out.
Yeah.
And I think that like there were two major things going. I don't even think we had time to process, to be honest.
Everything.
Like, we didn't have time to process because we were planning a wedding during COVID, and we were
trying to be present with two major things that's happening in our life.
Yeah.
Which is a hard juggle. Don't regret it, but it's a hard juggle looking back at it, and having to heal through or like mend some of those things that may have been lost in the gaps now on the back end. And even like, there's some joy, like he says, like, seeing the baby moving your tummy, going to the ultrasounds. We got to do a little 3D ultrasound. That was like so fun, like seeing his actual facial expressions and personality, and how he was laying out. He still lays the same way now, and just certain things. There's a lot of highs, and even in the moments where it was difficult, because I know that there were times where, I was like, I was never bed rest, but I couldn't go to work. I had to work from home because I do have fibromyalgia, and the fibromyalgia and the pregnancy was just not interacting well. And then I think our son has snuggled in like an interesting spot in my body, and it made it the most painful ever to walk. That I would just be in tears, or there were some days where he like had to get a walker for me in order to be able to walk. And even just like, some of the difficulties I had, even just with experiences from people, like how was it for you to also go through, but also try and support me through that?
Well, naturally, like I'm a very caretaking kind of person, and the role in my family is caretaker, and it's kind of just like, it's a natural kind of instinct. So I think while you were pregnant, it was like, physically at least, maybe not mentally, I didn't always get it right or know what to do, but I think physically when I was here, it's like, do you need a rub? Do you need help
he was gonna give the rubs. He said it in his vows. He's gonna rub my body.
Do you need help walking, even from out the car to in the house? Like, do you need to sleep in this position? Do you need to do we all need to sleep on the living room floor? Do we all need to sleep in the bed in this position? Do we need to what is it physically that you need? And I think I was focused on my role as a support. Because I think that as a man, I understood that her health, her physical health, and her mental health was most important. Having a healthy developing baby. And in the times we were stressed out, I was worried for all of us, for her, me, and the baby. But really, I was thinking about the baby's development.
Yeah.
Because we were planning a wedding. That, mind you, if you're listening and you're getting married out there, try to hire a wedding planner, or for real, get married and it just be a couple people in a destination. I wanted to get married in Hawaii, just us.
But I'd be thinking I'm a Disney princess, so bada boom, bada bing.
And it and it's not like I'm glad that she got that experience to have her family there, and
it's still bad. It's
but it was it was a give and take. But if I could take away all the stress that I would, if I could take it back, it would be I wouldn't I would want to take away the stress.
Yeah.
For any pregnant person, it's like a wedding is hard for anybody, but especially when someone is pregnant. So I was worried, like, she had just got finished with the first trimester, and then our wedding was like right after the first trimester ended. So I'm like, we're stressing out about like the list, about this, about
Wow.
prices, about who does this, about are you doing this? You're not, like, just going back and forth. And I think that took away some of the joy
Yeah.
of being present. We've been
Yeah.
talking about being present, and feeling the moment, and it took away, like, our wedding took away some shine or some mindfulness away from the experience. And
Yeah.
I think that we were still in alignment with each other, but we didn't have time to think. So I think that, like, I felt like I definitely played support, and I was aware of that, and I think I did a pretty consistent job.
You did do a great and amazing job, given the nature. Because we got married in January, we had our baby. He came early in May. And I will say, like, you know, and we'll get to this later, just in the sense of our community, when there's so many big things going on, sometimes people center themselves that aren't even in the actual relationship or that's going through it. And I feel like I do wish we had help, but I wish that we had some great heavy hitters, and then there was some loopholes, and then there was just ways that I feel like with everyone where people could have recentered us and our experiences consistently, even though I know that's not realistic, because everyone has their own needs and perspectives too. But I just, you know, there are some areas where I'm like, oh, if I wouldn't have had to worry about that, or if people would have considered this, or if people would have been a little bit more caring and tending to this, like, that would have been a big help, being that I was juggling being engaged and becoming a mom. I think sometimes that slipped under the radar, whether it was additional stress, additional task, my emotions, just whatever it may be. I do kind of, like, you know, wish that people, or even for you, like, your additional task, your additional thing, I wish that some people would have just showed up just in a little bit of a different way, because that would have actually been very life-changing and helpful with all that was going on. Yeah. And, like, you know, even just, like, you know, when it comes to, like, prenatally, I do want to ask, because I don't really think I'm bringing this up or talking about this on any of the, I guess, episodes. But I guess two things I want to bring up is, like, you know, something that doesn't always get talked about, and I feel like we touched on it, but we didn't really go that deep into it, is, like, you know, I want to talk about just, like, the anatomy scans and, like, seeing the baby. So on one side, like, you know, I feel like a lot of parents don't actually have the conversation in regards to, like, what if the baby, something's wrong with the baby, or what if the baby is not developing in the way that they should, and what is that conversation? Do you follow through with the pregnancy? Do you end the pregnancy? I feel like we touched on it, but it never went too in depth in, because not a lot of people want to think in that way. Like, that's hard, it's your little baby, but we know that does tend to happen. So, like, what do you feel like your thoughts were, or, like, even now, like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a tough question, because I believe babies are blessings from God, from a higher power, from a spiritual, for, like, they're spiritual, special, most precious and special. Spiritually, I feel like they're literally from heaven, packaged back to earth. You know what I'm saying? But the reality is, and getting like maybe deeper or challenging some people, is if people, like, I don't want to go too far off, but I'm just saying what comes off to, I think when people have babies, they have a particular mold in mind,
Centering themselves again.
Yeah, like, I want my baby to look like this, or I want my baby to be like this, or I want my baby
act
to
this way.
If you knew your baby, the question that I want people to think about as they consider having a kid is, if you knew your kid was not going to be this picture perfect thing that you wanted, would you still have that child? If you knew that your child was going to have special needs for the rest of their life, or they were going to develop a mental illness that was going to take over them, or if you knew your baby was trans.
LGBT plus.
Like transgender. Would you love your baby in the same way that you would love this picture of a baby that you
or
have
even
in
if
your
they're
head?
like defiant, because
Yeah.
sometimes down the road the kids just be very oppositionally defiant. So
Right. And one takeaway that I have this year is, after having our son, is that, you know, I like having a baby was one of the greatest joys in my life, and arguably in your life, but it was for us, right? It's because we really wanted to have a baby. We were planning on having a kid. We were talking about, we were married, and married people a lot of times is the picture of completion. Like, what's next? A child. But it's arguably from a selfish place.
Yeah.
Like, because you want to have a child, because you want to have a kid, you want to see what your kid is going to look like. You want to.
The child's not asking to be here.
Yeah,
you're asking them to be
here. You're literally bringing a human into this life. And like, I think that like, I think about, when I think about the technology that we have, it's like, you can find out if your child is likely to have this, like a disability or this, and
certain genes.
and the question that when you get real with like the reality of having a kid is, are you willing to take on that challenge, and are you going to love your child and help them until you're basically not on this earth? And like, but this is like, look, folks might be like, okay, I'm turning off this episode,
because that's what we're talking.
I just think some people, they don't think about that stuff when they decide to have a kid. And I don't think everybody needs to be a parent.
Yeah.
I think so many people feel like they have to have a child before they like leave this earth, or they want to have a child and they're just not, they're not
mentally, physically, spiritually, and like
they're not ready, or they don't have, or they might. And it's okay to not have the skills, but they also might not have to be a place where they can grow to have those skills, or work towards having those skills, or they're already at a really challenging position, and they may not be able to like change those circumstances. So I just think, like, I don't think having a child is for everybody. And I don't think that our society should pressure people to have kids, or even if you're in a marriage, like, it's okay to tell your parents, I'm not about to have that kid. I'm sorry. I love you. I really wish I could give this thing to you, but I'm just not that person.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay. And I think this generation, Gen Z, and even our child's generation, we're seeing the numbers go down, because I think millennials are the first generation to be like, actually, I don't know if I like, if I'm ready to have a child. Actually, I don't know. Like, I need to focus on self and like figure out my life. We're picking up the traumas from all the past generations, especially Black and brown people, that generational trauma. We're holding so much that, like, you really gotta be, one thing that we, like, this week we were talking about is being present with your core self, knowing who you are, actually knowing deep down who you are, and being happy and joyful inside. Because what I'm realizing is, without that, or everything that we feel, eventually our child could feel if we don't work through it.
Yeah.
Or they'll be able to see it on us. And so I think that, like, yeah, it's a question to be thought about. Like, why did you want to have a kid?
No, that's real. Instead of just falling into the American dream, or when I was little, I always wanted to have kids, or I want to have a little me. There's no such thing as little you. All the kids are their own people. And I do feel like we have to work harder at decentering ourselves when we have a kid, and realize I see lots of posts on social media talk about not having ownership of a person, period. Whether you're married to them, in a relationship with them, any type of person that is connected to you, not realizing you don't have ownership over them. The only person you have ownership over is yourself. And being able to recognize, like, taking and loving people as they are. And like with the child, like some people subscribe to when you 18 you get out. But it's like, is that fair to them? Because again, you asked them to be here. They didn't ask to be here. So if you knew that you had to take care of your child for the rest of your life, like, is that okay? Like, you created something that you knew you were going to have to care for. So it like, just a lot of narratives I feel like have to change. And even in regards to, like, you know, having children having different abilities, like, you know, it is a hard topic, because I feel like, you know, sometimes I watch people that do choose to allow their children to come through, and sometimes it's just a really hard life. And I think, like, that's where my questioning would be of, like, you know, I wouldn't want to abort a child because all life is beautiful life, but I also don't want to see my child go through such agony. So it will put me between a rock and a hard place, honestly, depending on what the circumstances are. Like, you know, some things it's like, okay, we can navigate through this, we can be fine. And I think it goes even deeper in a conversation of, like, your mental capacity. Because if you ask for a child to be here that has different abilities, but you honestly don't have the mental capacity for it, it doesn't actually serve the child. Or you. It just doesn't do well. So sometimes, unfortunately, and people may be upset about it, but sometimes it may mean abortion. Or if you're a person that's like, I don't want to abort, giving the child up for adoption, or letting someone else care for them, or, you know, trying to figure out whatever that best thing could be, because it's better to have good enough parents, as we've been talking about, that can be there for the child, than just, like, feeling guilted into keeping the child because, you know, you feel like it's against religion, or it's against your thoughts, or it's against that. Sometimes things are even a lot bigger than that, and just the impact that it has on you, the child, what life looks like from day to day. Like, it's hard having just a child, periods. So it's not always, like, the easiest and most butterflies and rainbows thing.
Or just harming, like, it makes me think about harming the child, like punishing the child.
Exactly.
Because you're frustrated or you're exhausted. Like, your child doesn't have to have special needs, but, like, they could just have a different personality than you. Or, and it could be a lot of different things, but a lot of times I feel like parents punish their child or harm their child because of all these other factors. And so I think becoming a parent, now we're put in those shoes. Before, we used to watch people or judge or, like, observe. Now, like, it's like, when I'm frustrated, it's like, what do I do with that energy? Yeah. If I don't have the skills to figure it out, a lot of times it's like you take it out on the person that you're close to, your partner, your child, like, and I think that, like, that's honestly one of the reasons why I didn't know if I wanted to have a kid. Not because I can't control myself, but because the fear of not working on my own trauma and my own mental health and projecting that onto my kid or harming my child, that's a real thought that came into my mind, is like, you know, I didn't want to continue a cycle of hurt or pain.
There's a lot of people say that
to anyone else if I had the power to. And arguably, a lot of us, it takes, like, a lot of time and, like, the practice of mindfulness to actually work through your issues. And sometimes when you have a kid, it's not that you can't work through it, but you have a human reliant on your streets. Your time, your stretch for time. You have a human reliant on you, so there's not as much space to take that walk that you might do every day after work. Already in this capitalist society where we're drained when we come home, if that thing was for you, you add on a human or a couple humans on top of that, then it becomes a smaller window of what you can do to take care of yourself. So I think that, like, I don't think everybody should have kids, straight up. But I think that if you decide to have a kid, you have to have that conversation with yourself and your partner.
Be mindful.
can I work through like my honestly my traumas and my mental health enough to be present for a child and not pass on that generational pain? Or what will one thing that I'm working on in therapy is um being mindful of the things that I've inherited from my family.
Mm-hmm.
And then like my therapist posed to me like, you know, you wouldn't want your child to live with this thing that you've been carrying. So I'm like, oh, snaps. Like, before I was like, okay, I've been doing me this whole time. Like, I've been able to take it. But now I'm like, oh, snaps. Like, if I need to figure something out because I don't want my child to also just have to carry something with them because they feel like they have to or their
just
dad did it.
passing the bag on.
Yeah, and I think I'm realizing I've told Chetina that like, yeah, having a child is a selfish thing, and that's okay too.
Yeah, there's
that's
nothing
okay too.
wrong with it. You should have the things you want, the things that you desire. We're just saying be mindful about all that, you know, comes with it. And kudos to the people that do have children that have different abilities, because I don't want people to think we're saying shouldn't have those children. That's not it either. It's just being mindful and, you know, seeking support in ways that you can. And, you know, I remember our son had colic when, you know, he was born, and the agony of watching him cry because of digestive issues from being like, you know, a late preemie. I wanted to cry all the time. So I can only imagine just having children that you constantly have to see go through procedures, or that you constantly have to see struggle in different ways, or they have different limitations, or just whatever the case may be. I definitely clap it up for y'all, because I know it's not easy and sometimes y'all not recognized, but y'all some superheroes. And I know we've talked a lot just about like the decision and the journey and being intentional about that. Let's shift a little bit into labor and delivery, because that's listen, all these things are rides. They're wild rides. So this is another wild ride. I want to know, through the eyes of the father, what was it like, just the labor and delivery experience? Like, just knowing like, oh snap, we're about to have a baby. Don't know at what moment, but the baby is coming. And then just going through that whole ride until you actually see, because he saw his baby come out. So...
yeah, before we wrap up that last thought, I did want to echo what you had to say.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like, just to be clear, what I'm saying is, like, when your child is here, like, you have to be okay with whatever that child is.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's really it's out of their control. It's not, you know, like... But the reality is, a lot of people disown their child because of who their child is.
Yeah.
Or just like, if it's a medical condition, if it's an identity, a lot of people are disowned. And the reality is, if people don't want it, they kick them out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
Or they continue that cycle of abuse. So all I'm saying is, like, don't just have a child because you want a child, but you have to go through that cycle, those check boxes in your head. What will I do if this comes to my table? You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm trying to say.
That's real.
Labor and delivery. It was unexpected. Y'all have, you know, if you haven't listened to...
Well, before this, y'all heard the one my doula. So
before that, go listen after this. Listen to that one if you haven't. But just, I think, have, like, if your partner is a black woman who's pregnant, like, there's a lot of, like, violence that you see being done to the patient from the institution, and just lack of research and negligence on a bigger level. Like, for example, there should be more research about just women's bodies during the pregnancy process, specifically women of color, specifically black women, and like just the birthing birthing system with women, particularly Black women, because she went into labor. She had preeclampsia, and we went the whole pregnancy without like high blood pressure.
Right.
She didn't have
no
high
issues
blood pressure
other than not being able to walk because of fibromyalgia and the baby positioned in my hip or wherever the heck he was.
She didn't even have high blood pressure before the pregnancy, but her doctor, based off of statistics, said, well, Black women are more highly likely to have preeclampsia or eclampsia during birth.
Right.
So you need to
take this baby aspirin.
And, you know, she was like, well, we know it's because I'm a Black
Y'all
woman.
make me do this because I'm Black.
But so it actually happening in front of us. Like I know at first it's like, well, does she really need to take this? Because it's not, she didn't have, it wasn't in her medical history. But when it happened, it's like, okay, well, where's the, like, what happened?
Right. What was the point? Y'all made me take the baby aspirin.
Right. But also, what happened? Or like, we need research.
Yeah. That's a good question. How does it get from A to Z?
We need medical documents because she's not the only Black woman that experienced that, not having high blood pressure and
people are dying from it.
Right.
People are dying
literally
from it.
Literally. But we don't have the medical research. Clearly patriarchy and sexism. The monies don't go to studying women's bodies and during giving birth, especially women of color. That's a whole nother layer of, like, it's being neglected. And this is why, like, mortality rates for Black women are higher than other groups of women. And so I think that when we weren't ready, like, it was not on our bingo card. I've been saying that. It wasn't on our bingo card. Like, I was going to work, and, you know, they say, okay, you know, when stuff happens, it's just, what was your birthing story, right? I was going to work, she had a headache, and then she would, like, talk to our doula, and based off of her symptoms, like, headaches and seeing spots and stuff like that, it was
and I was, like, in the middle of, I was nesting, so I'd never got to take maternity photos. Our nursery wasn't fully put together. I was trying to, like, go through some things and put them away in that moment, and something just told me I had been feeling weird a couple of days, actually. And something just told me, you really should probably ask your doula a question about how you're feeling. Because maybe, but maybe not, but maybe something's wrong, but hopefully not, type of situation.
Yeah, I think, and because she was very on top of her, just, like, in tune with her body, she was like, yeah, I need to, and then our doula said it, like, yeah, you need to get checked out. It was literally saved her life and the baby's life.
Yeah, because I wasn't even thinking it was going, I told him, hey, so even though I was crying because my doula had already, like, told me from the episode, y'all probably know, she already had told me, like, it sounds like it could be preeclampsia, but, you know, we're not going to panic. We're just going to talk to your OB, see what they said. The OB was like, yeah, I think you need to come in. And I'm like, oh, crap. I'm, like, crying, talking to my sister, like, they think it might be this, and I don't want it to be this. Because I only had one negative example of what preeclampsia was. I still, honestly, throughout the whole experience, I think I'm just now coming to an understanding of what preeclampsia is. And that kind of sucks and is scary in its own self that I wasn't even educated. And I go above and beyond to be educated. I am just now understanding what it was, and I'm kind of even, like, saddened and terrified for my past self and when I really realized how serious that actually was. But I remember telling him, like, don't leave work. I'm literally just gonna go. I'm gonna have an appointment, and I'm gonna come back home because I want to go and eat some sushi. Not raw fish, y'all, but, like, the cooked sushi. I want to eat some sushi, so don't even come. And he was like, no, because we don't know if you're gonna have the baby. I'm like, I'm not having the baby, so it's fine. You don't have to come. But he was like, no, I need to just be there anyway, so I'm about to leave work now. So I waited until he got here to head on down to where we was going, to the hospital.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like I said, it was you being in tune with, you know, what needed to, like, just the follow through process.
Right.
And it's really hard to trust it's hard to trust the hospital. But I think having a doula was so key in the success and us being able to feel like having that person to help along the way was like literally saved us. I believe.
Yeah.
And our baby.
Shout out to you.
Shout out to Nikia, who was our doula. And I just think that like there's so many things. But when you have Olympian women, black women dying of eclampsia, that's a problem.
Yeah.
There's a huge gap of resource and knowledge and understanding, and also like, you know, a lot when it comes to like birthing that we just don't know, and many communities don't know. And I just think that like, look, I want to have, if I had the money and the resources and the time, I would have like 4 or 5 kids. But
why do you keep saying that, but not in the atmosphere?
But seeing what she went through, I wouldn't want her to experience that. We are interested in like maybe having another kid, but what's also important is her mental health, her physical health,
mental health,
my mental health, our baby, our son thriving and growing.
Right, the one we already have.
And also just like, you know, I think those things are more important than bringing in another child. But also, I think seeing all of that, all of what she experienced and the trauma and just like the barriers, not every, this is where like identity and race and those things come in. Not everybody experiences that during their birth. Not every person giving birth experiences that. And I wouldn't want you to experience that again. And like in my mind, I'd be like, if I could snap our fingers and like fast forward through 1 year, like just snap our fingers and like baby number 2 be here without her going through the trauma, without us even going through the mental like ride of being parents of a child, of a baby, I would fast forward, because I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
Yeah, because it's not like it was hard for you to, you know, I only know my experience and I'm looking at him, but he's looking at me and he's watching everything happen not only to me but to 2 people, or depending on however many babies is in the womb. But, you know, that, like, the stakes are higher at that point in time. And, you know, when there's like, it's not a smooth and easy like, okay, and now it was 20 minutes and you pushing your babies out. You can be there for days. You're there for hours. And just watching different people do different interventions and, you know, just put hands and stick things in places that typically don't. Just lots of things that you had to, like, watch.
Only places that an intimate partner has access basically to. And not even that. Like, I don't, a lot of things that, like,
that the doctors was doing.
Lord. That's not even... So, but I think it's the quality of care and tone and time, and that I understand why, like, people want to have children at home or birthing centers, and why women of color in particular feel safer at home or at a birthing center, because when you're in a hospital, it's people coming in and out every 20-30 minutes.
Yeah.
It's not just that, they're on a whole floor, so they're going in between women, in between rooms where people are having babies, and they have to boom, like our doctor like helped deliver our baby and then
went on to the next one.
Went to the next room.
The whole place was full.
And, you know, hopefully that's okay. You know, hopefully you survive that and are able to, like, you know, and that works sometimes, you know. But what we learned while seeking doulas is have a baby in a place that you feel safe. Even if there's like, for her, even if like, and you could talk about this, even if there's trauma within the hospital, I think for like for maybe like if you feel like you're like anxious, or you feel, or you know that you're going to have a higher risk pregnancy, like having a baby out of hospital, there's multiple different specialists there at one point in time. So that, you know, that might be a reason that you might want to like be at the hospital. But I think if we knew everything was just going to go
easy
smooth,
peasy lemon squeezy, I would have a home birth if I knew I could have endured it, and I would have been fine. You know, I guess now after you have preeclampsia, I don't know this, but I assume you're considered high risk. So I don't even know. I don't know if I have it in me to do a home birth, which is fine. Totally fine. Everything is fine however you want to birth your child. But I feel like when you have something high risk, you're then considered high risk for the rest of your pregnancies. Or at least that's what I kind of understand it to be. So, you know, there's that. And how do you feel like you juggle, like how did you stay strong and persevere yourself emotionally through the experience of the labor and delivery? Because fathers also don't get that much recognition or respect sometime in the space unless you have a really, really great nurse, really, really great doctor. So we had a mix of like people being like, oh my gosh, he's the best, and I haven't seen anybody ever really be in the space like this, and you're so lucky. And then some people really could have cared two craps about him and was focused completely on me. And then some people was just belligerent and not really that nice to either one of us. So
I think a lot of men are disconnected from the process. Mm-hmm. And it's really important to be in intimate relation with the person that you're having a baby with, because that helps you stay present during the process. Mm-hmm. I think if I wasn't there every night with her, if I wasn't like talking to the baby or touching the baby like in through her stomach, and just if I wasn't at the appointments, like I would be disconnected. And I think men in general are disconnected from the process. Like there's already a separation. I don't feel everything from the moment she's pregnant until having the baby, and then a year afterwards her body's transforming. I'm not physically feeling every single thing, so I have to be in alignment with what you're going through, or I'm already disconnected before I even get to the hospital. Yeah. And what I found out in the hospital was a lot of men are just disconnected. I think I think a lot of men in general are disconnected from a lot of stuff. And when it comes to birth, it's another one of those things where like it's legit, like nurses are looking at you like like you're just the trash of the you're the scum between my toes. You're the trash of the universe. You get this person pregnant, and that's it. Trash of the universe. You had your time, you had your way, and then now you're just there. You're just a body that's like not present, doesn't care,
playing video games,
doing. And there's nothing wrong with that, but there is something wrong with it when your person's over there like, when your person is struggling, you're not helping, you're not you're on your phone, you're hanging out with the homies, and your person needs support. Mm-hmm. You're their emotional
There's
support.
There's time and space. There's time to play the video games.
Or you're like just everybody. I needed sleep, right? But if you're asleep the whole time when your person is going through one of the most hardest things, and they're bringing your baby here, you have to be present for that. And so at first I was like, yo, these nurses, first she's the patient, so I'm like, have to decenter myself, because her medical bill is the one that's like, she's the patient,
even the food, everything. Nothing was really off the table unless somebody was nice.
I'm not the patient, so there's that. But the second thing is, like, a lot of times I wasn't acknowledged because I'm like, oh, okay. I could, it's the only place, or arguably the only place in healthcare where the woman is the center of everything. And so,
Yeah.
you know, I was just like, I felt like there were some nurses that were just looked at me and didn't acknowledge my presence. And I was like, at first I was offended, and then I had to like realize, okay, no, there's a bigger picture here. They're used to seeing a lot of men detached.
Yeah, or they might feel
everything.
like defensive too, because I remember it was a situation with the heater or the air. I can't remember if the heater or air, but he wanted it to be cut on, and the nurse kind of snapped at him and basically told him in a nutshell, it's not about him. It's about whatever I want, I need. Which is correct, but she didn't know that I had asked him how he felt and if he wanted X, Y, and Z, and to tell her. So it was kind of misconstrued that she was already on defense, like as if she needed to take up for me, but she didn't actually have to. And then so I kind of like wish I would have stuck up more for him in that moment, but I was just kind of like, oh, maybe don't like take it too much to heart. There's no telling what's going on in her mind, but sometimes the nurses are already on defense because who knows what they done seen and how people have actually acted or not really centered the person that's birthing in the moment. But it wasn't even a situation like that. So that made him feel some type of way. And that's a part of now our birth experience.
Well, and I feel like it was either related to you or something related to the baby. Like, I don't know what it was specifically. I just know like...
No, we were asking them to turn on. It was either the heater or the air. Either had got too warm or got too cold. And, you know, I asked you how you felt like if we needed to turn, and you said yeah, and then I said ask the nurse, and you asked her, and she just like had a rude comment to say, and then you felt some type of way after it because of how she responded to you.
Yeah, it was definitely like eye-opening. And going back to community, it took like talking to one of my homeboys whose wife also had a traumatic experience, whose wife is also a Black woman, and you know, he was like, yeah, I didn't feel that great as a dad there. But I think what helped me overcome was honestly being in touch with my emotions and my connecting back to what I was feeling. Mm-hmm. That's been a big theme in my life right now, is connecting to my core self. I had a breakdown a couple times. One, without you knowing, because I was seeing everything that was happening to her. And I told our doula, like, I need to go downstairs and, like, cry it out. Because I was emotionally overwhelmed. And then the second time, I cried with you. She's looking at me. I'm like...
But it was a sweet, intimate moment.
It
brought us close together.
It brought us close together, but it was a breakthrough, I would say. Because that day, a couple hours later, you know, we had a breakthrough. She was able... Her water broke, and it was, like go time. She was gonna deliver, but
no, it wasn't even after the water. It still took a lot of time. I wasn't dilating.
Right, but then I cried. Like, we cried together, prayed. Oh. I went to get something to eat downstairs, and you were like, "Come upstairs." Within the hour, you're gonna like.
Oh yeah,
you're gonna. So like, it helped. It was an emotional breakthrough, but emotion again, arguably,
emotional, physical, all
psyche is connected to your physical. You know, like, there's research, your emotions and your psyche is connected to your physical body. So arguably that was a breakthrough for you and for us, because it was like, but I feel like what helped us be in alignment is like, or you seeing that vulnerability.
Yeah.
And since then, like, having a baby within the first year and being married, like, I've shed many a tears that you've held me and seen me, but that was one of the first times where I like broke down for real. I don't think you saw me cry like that before.
No.
But yeah, I think it just, that helped me get through the experience, because it's hard.
Yeah, and like, even if I might have been in pain, I still needed to create space for him. Because I knew that this is his first experience too. I may not have gotten it all right because of the postpartum depression, anxiety stuff, which is something that, you know, to talk about next. But like, you know, I have to always remember to create space for him too, because this is all his first journey as well. No matter my struggles, and you know, I am curious, even just with like, because you know, we haven't really touched on the postpartum depression or anxiety stuff. And what that has been like for you, just like, again, through your eyes, like watching it happen, or how that's impacted you. Do you have anything briefly you want to like share about that? experience? I know that has not been easy. This whole postpartum diagnosis of depression, anxiety, and all that has not been easy. It's for the birds. It is for the birds. Like, and I know that hasn't been the easiest on you, either. So, I'm just curious about, like, how have you been remaining strong through that, or what has been your perspective, you know, now that our son is 1?
I think that it's a journey, like, to, first off, anxiety and depression is a journey, right?
And men can get postpartum depression, anxiety too,
and it's
if
never
they didn't carry the baby.
It's never over completely. If you have a diagnosis, it gets, things can change. You can go into deep dive and then come out of it. So I think that figuring out the supports you need are key, and how to get them. And this is where access comes in, you know, like how to sustain and like find resources if you can't afford to go to therapy. But I think in retrospect, if we ever have another child, or if we go through this experience again, it's like, you know, we need to save a pot. Like we want a doula. We need to save another couple $1,000s for 6 months of therapy or whatever like that. Or just, I think that you can't heal yourself alone. You need a village, but you need professionals, and you need people that like know how to help support in order to pull you out of that place. And so my thoughts are, like, find those things if you know how to find those things, or ask the person that knows how to find those things if they're willing to help you. But I think that, like, postpartum is a real thing, like, and it can look different kinds of ways, but
right.
A trigger could come up literally every night.
Yeah.
And so, again, goes back to our earlier question. Am I ready for this when I decide to have this child? Like,
can I know what it's going to come with?
Can I mentally handle it?
Yeah.
Because it's a miracle sometimes that we got through that, through the whole experience.
Yeah.
And horrible things happen all the time that are beyond your control. One thing that I'm still anxious about is just like a baby breathing at night, which a woman,
I thought I was over it. That was a whole
woman,
part of my anxiety,
you know,
but I
a
still
mom,
check.
You know, with postpartum, like that's something that a lot of women experience, is just like fear that your baby's gonna stop breathing, or SIDS, because it's real. And then when you see how easy it is for a baby to get in a compromising position, somebody told me it's like after 8 months it's this, then the goalpost moves to here, then the post moves to here.
Yeah, the post is always moving.
And so I think that's what being a parent, that's what we've been told, like that's what becoming a parent is like there's so many fears that come along with parenthood. And I was listening to an interview with a doula like a year and a half ago before we were looking for doulas. I was like, look, we need to listen to this doula's like interview. But it's not just the physical act of having a baby, but it's the mental act of having a baby, and all the weight that carries. And I think that like this is where lived experience like matters when you think about your village and your community. Is like, I'm like telling my homies, oh, so who's having a baby next? Because I want them to like, I want to talk to them about it, because I want to feel like I have some community. And I've gained some new friends because they were dads, you know what I'm saying? But even this preeclampsia situation, I was at the table with the homies the other day, and I'm like, yeah, she had preeclampsia, it looked like this. And I know that it was just like imaginary like things, but if you had a partner that had a baby, you can literally visualize everything. So I think that like the postpartum journey isn't over until it's significantly.
Well, all women, they all have postpartum. The postpartum depression and anxiety is a whole, another thing. And even I do want to ask, like, because it's not easy. Like, I know it's specifically with me with my diagnosis. Like, it can be hard to be in that space as a father, and you can feel like you're not a good father because of all the things I'm anxious about it will happen, or I'm telling you you're doing this wrong. What is some tips if there are other fathers out here that are trying to support mothers that have those diagnoses? How have you been able to remain strong-willed and reaffirm yourself that you're doing a good job?
I think you have to be in tune with what you need, and most men arguably are like, they don't know, they can't answer that question a lot of times. But for me, it's like, I'm probably going to need therapy. Also, I'm probably going to need to talk to a therapist to express my thoughts around certain stuff, to have that safe space to go back and forth with, which I am doing. Outside of, and it's not because we had a baby, it's just one of the many things that I'm like, it's a part of the conversation. I think support groups, I think having a village and a community with your friends, but particularly with dads, like, dads that are like actually 2 days ago, we went to the fair and her best friend's husband, like, our son had, he pooped on himself.
He was the firework.
Within 15 minutes, he pooped on himself twice. And it went through his clothes.
Oh my gosh. He pooped through all the extra clothes and everything.
This is thousands of people are at this fair, and it's stressful, especially the men's bathroom is like, could be hella nasty.
Right. And I'd be too overwhelmed. I still got things to work through. I'd be too overwhelmed to handle it. Mm-hmm. And I even had to ask him, because I know he'd be like, I can handle it. But then I was like, maybe he should go with you. And at first he was like, no, I got it. And then he thought about, like, yeah, maybe so.
It's nice. It's nice to have, like, the homie. But it's like, he's a dad. He's a dad with,
three going on 4 and 1 year old. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like, I think, like, having his support there, women, like, that's normal. The home, like, even if her friend doesn't have a kid, usually, like,
the girls gonna stick together.
Yeah, they're gonna help each other out. But me, I'm used to being like, one, I don't really see, there's a lot of dads, and I've been like, when I'm out in public, I'm able to like see more dads just like holding it down. But usually when I'm in a bathroom, I'm like the only dad changing their kid. That's just how I see it for now. But there's definitely more women changing their babies in the changing room.
Some men's room. Yeah. And we'll get to this, is how to make more space for fathers. Some men's room don't even have a changing table.
But, and you could even tell by the design that men are like designing the changing tables in men's bathrooms, because just like when the first time we changed the baby, the changing table was near the urinals. And I was like, that's so nasty.
Right.
Like, that is like... But anyways, the point being said was, like, having him there was very helpful and helped just calm my energy down. But he even just helped me out a little bit by, like, holding something or throwing something in the trash for me. And so that was like...
Where's my heart? Oh, it makes me tearful.
But it's like, I need to... I want to be around other dads. And so I'm, like, pushing myself to like reach out and like meet other young dads with young kids, because I think that like being a dad is a journey in itself, and you need that support too, and you need to do it with other people. You can't
do it by your kids are supposed to be raised as a village, and the postpartum anxiety and depression made me like shut us off in an island. But there's so much beauty even in just the story you just told, and like my heart is just getting so warm of like, I actually enjoy the community, like being with our friends and like the kids are there and like it just feels so less isolating and like you're not by yourself. Mm-hmm. Like I really am falling in love with that feeling.
Absolutely. I think
and they just look pretty cool carrying our son out with his diaper on because he had pooped through all his clothes, just like as if they conquered the world. And I was just like, my heart is warm. My heart is warm. And I told my friend, like, I'm so happy that, you know, he takes care of that because I would be so overwhelmed. She was like, clap it up. Aren't you just happy for husbands that just take care of things? And I'm like, no, literally. I absolutely am, because I would have been in shambles. Just shambles. So, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think the balance partnership is important.
Yeah.
In the village, you know, like, is important when like having a young child, like, and in relationships where it's a man and a woman with a kid, like, I think men have to like in the partnership there has to be a balance between like who, like, because traditionally a lot of, not traditionally, I would say maybe in like arguably in like the States, you know, over the last 40 years, there's a lot of men have taken on like roles that disconnect them maybe from their like child again. Mm-hmm. Like whether it be like just some of the nurturing stuff, like like my wife has to like, or my lady has to change the diaper, she has to do this, she has to do that. And I think that, like, honestly, there has to be a balance of responsibilities and roles.
Yeah. And even just in rounding out our talk, like, how can more space, healthy space, be made for fathers to feel included and important throughout the whole experience from conception up until now? Like, how can fathers just feel more important? Because it's important to have a father in your child's life. It's important for fathers to be there. So how can they feel that importance as well? What can professionals, people, family members, friends, anybody do to like help that?
Acknowledge their presence, acknowledge that they're like putting in effort, you know, and support them. Mm-hmm. Be there, hold space for that,
helping them feel seen.
Yeah, help, like, support space and open space. I know men take up a lot of space in places, but like when you see a dad doing something like healthy, or engaging in something or handling it, like, say something or become a part of like their village, but don't normalize, you know, being disconnected. You know, I think the more that men are encouraged to be emotional and open about their experience, the better, more well-rounded their kids are going to be.
Yeah, I agree. Breaking the barriers, as this is called, and breaking the stigma. And I really do want to appreciate you for, you know, coming on the platform, being open, being vulnerable. I appreciate you for the amazing, for somebody that didn't think they were going to be a father ever in life. This is one of the top-notch ones, okay? And I want you, even when my brain is telling me to act out in other ways and do other things, I do want you to know that you're appreciated and loved and honored. And I most definitely could not do this without him. Like, clap it up for all the single parents out there. I'm so grateful that that is not my journey, and I honor those where it is their journey, and I understand how it could get to that. And parenthood it's a lot. So I wish everyone had all the support in the world. Even 2 people isn't enough. Darn it! Like you need help. You can't do it by yourself. You can't. You're struggling out in these streets. Like, goodness gracious. So I really do just appreciate you and love you. And I'm so happy that our son has you as like his number one superhero to look up to, because he adores him. Like, You would think that he the mama and a daddy because my son probably sometime will want to call him mama. He needs to wake up and recognize. Anyways, I really appreciate you for coming on the journey. This was, these episodes are my most precious. That's why I'm closing out the season with them. And I want people to know, because like we said, he make beautiful music and he does beautiful things. So I want people to know where they can support you, where they can, join what you got going on, know what you got going on, listen to all the amazing things that you've created. And if they have questions, like how can people just get in touch with you?
On Instagram at Rodrael, that's RODRAEL, and on Spotify, same thing, RODRAEL. Stream, also on YouTube, Rodrael Vivo. Like I have a couple music videos. I have like a lot of music along the way. When you do see me, repost, share, let somebody else know, and other than that, like, find this one and then you'll be able to tap in with me. But I'm here.
Yeah, absolutely. And for anyone that's, looking for services, I do have a private practice. If I know you, I can't do it, but everyone else I can. But I do have a specialty for new parents and people that are newly engaged, people that are newly married, and people, conception all the way up to postpartum, like, through that first year, because I realize the gaps that we've experienced and I want to help fill those. So check out my website, www.alwayslivelevelly.com. I have a virtual therapy practice for California residents. Be connected. If you're looking for it, I got it. Be connected. Listen to the podcast. They're free. There's a whole season 1 that's amazing and phenomenal. Share it with people, because sharing doesn't cost anything. It's all free information. I'm creating it and putting it out there and hoping that it lands and resonate with people, and just helps give a little bit of light in their situations. So once again, my name is Chetina Guadalupe, and this is Rodrael Guadalupe, and we are so grateful that you've been rocking with us and just listened to this story all the way to, the end. It's not the end because we didn't share all the details. Can't give all the goods away. You never know what may come in the future. So just more like a stay tuned. Yeah? All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.